हेलो नमस्कार। लिंकिंग लॉ अभी तक जाना गया है नए नए एक्सपेरिमेंट करने के लिए, कुछ नया इनिशिएटिव लेने के लिए, और आज भी ऐसा ही कुछ होने वाला है आपके बीच में। जुडिशरी गाइडेंस प्रोग्राम और एडवोकेसी गाइडेंस प्रोग्राम के अंदर पढ़ाई के अलावा और भी कई ऐसी चीज़ें होती है जो हम लोग सीख रहे हैं, जैसे आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस का इस्तेमाल करते हुए क्या करना, ट्रायल कोर्ट के मल्टीपल जजमेंट को एक MP3 फॉर्मेट के अंदर समझना। आज ऐसा ही कुछ एग्जाम्पल आप लोग बीच में आने वाला है। जुडिशरी गाइडेंस प्रोग्राम के ही रेगुलर स्टूडेंट हैं निखिल जी फ्रॉम फरीदाबाद हरियाणा। तो उनके द्वारा क्लास की चीज़ों को ऑब्जर्व करते हुए, क्लास में जो नया नया सिखाया गया उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए, और एक AI टूल की सहायता से एक इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ तैयार है जो की गई, और वो डॉक्यूमेंट मैं आपके सामने पेश करने जा रहा हूँ। ओके, और उससे पहले स्पेशल रेस्पेक्ट एंड लव फ्रॉम माई दैट कैंडिडेट्स। अच्छा लगता है जब आपके किसी चीज़ को आपका जो स्टूडेंट है उसको सीरियसली लेके क्या करता है, एफर्ट करने का, ट्राई करने का जो एक नया प्रयास करता है। डोंट मिस इट। और ये जो मैं आपको दिखाने जा रहा हूँ ना, इसका बकायदा ऑफिशियल जो वीडियो है, मतलब जो PDF है, वो भी मैं आप लोगों के लिए अवेलेबल करा दूंगा। आप देखो स्क्रीन पर देख पा रहे हो ना, तो ये यहाँ पर आपके लिए यस दिस वन, ये जो आपके सामने सेगमेंट है मेरे बैकग्राउंड के अंदर, मैं खुद को यहाँ पे थोड़ा स्मॉल साइज में लेके चला जाता हूँ। यस दिस वन। तो ये जो आपको यहाँ पे स्क्रीन पे दिखाई दे रहा है ना, ये एक्चुअल में वो PDF है, 13 पेज का PDF है, जिसको आप 4-5 मिनट के MP3 फॉर्मेट के अंदर देखेंगे। ओके, तो ये आप इसका नाम देख लीजिए, जगनेश्वर वर्सेस हंसराज। इसी केस की कहानी को एक नए तरीके से आपके सामने जो है इस वीडियो के अंदर मैं बताने वाला हूँ। और अगर ये वीडियो देखने के बाद आपको लगता है कि हाँ भाई, लिंकिंग लॉ वाकई में न्यू इनिशिएटिव वर्कआउट करता है और नई प्रैक्टिकल और मॉडर्न टेक्निक के साथ में अगर आप जुडिशरी गाइडेंस को तैयार करना चाहते हैं, देन मोस्ट वेलकम। आपके लिए अभी स्पेशल रिपब्लिक प्राइज का सेगमेंट भी चल रहा है, आप स्क्रीन पर देख पा रहे हैं। तो इन कूपन कोड के साथ में आप क्या कर सकते हैं, जुडिशरी गाइडेंस प्रोग्राम को डील जो कर सकते हैं। ओके, सो और जानकारी के लिए 9887746200 पे कनेक्ट कीजिए, और या फिर यहाँ पे कोर्स ऑप्शन है, कोर्स ऑप्शन में जाके आप इसको क्या कर सकते हैं, ये आपकी लाइव कोर्सेज का ऑप्शन है, इसको आप डील जो कर सकते हैं। इसमें आपकी जुडिशरी गाइडेंस प्रोग्राम, एडवोकेसी गाइडेंस प्रोग्राम, AIB वगैरह एवरीथिंग इज देयर। इतना ही नहीं, स्टेट वाइज मैंने आप लोगों के लिए रिकॉर्डेड सेगमेंट भी अवेलेबल करा रखा है, इनका भी आप बेनिफिट है जो ले सकते हैं। ओके, अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस चलिए तो इन्जॉय करते हैं इस वीडियो को, एंड अच्छे से ऑब्जर्व करना, और कमेंट बॉक्स के अंदर अपना फीडबैक जो है वो ज़रूर मेंशन कराइएगा। विश यू ऑल द बेस्ट, एंजॉय इट।
You know, sometimes the most important legal lessons come from the most unexpected places. This story, it starts with a really tragic loss, but it ends up being this incredible deep dive into how our legal system actually works. We're talking about a 6-year battle over a dead horse, and it all boils down to one critical question. What can you really prove in court? So let's start with this number, 92,000 rupees. That's what's at the very heart of this whole thing. It's the price of a prized mare, and it's the exact amount one man sued his neighbors for. And that one lawsuit? Well, it kicked off a legal saga that would go on for more than half a decade. I mean, it's a fair question, right? How on earth does a dispute between neighbors get this drawn out? To really get it, we've got to go back to the very beginning, to the incident that started this whole mess. Our story kicks off in a small village where just another ordinary day in November turned into an absolute legal nightmare for pretty much everyone involved. Let's dig into how it all went down. Okay, take a look at this timeline. What's really wild here is the pacing. You see how fast things go wrong at the start, and then everything just slows to a crawl. So Jagneshwar buys his prized mare, and boom, just 4 days later, it's dead. He files the lawsuit the next year, but then look at that last date. A verdict isn't reached until 2025. That's over 6 years to resolve a case that all started with one single tragic event. So, what was the claim? Well, the plaintiff, Jagneshwar, pointed the finger squarely at his neighbors. He was convinced their negligence was the reason for his terrible loss. And this right here is the heart of the conflict. On one side, you have Jagneshwar, who says, "My valuable mare is dead because you put up an illegal and dangerous blade wire fence." But on the other side, the defendants fire back with a total denial. They say, "We never installed a fence like that. And by the way, one of us wasn't even in the village when it happened." Now, to back up his claim, Jagneshwar walked into court with what looks like a pretty solid pile of evidence. He's got a police report, a post-mortem, photos of the poor animal, proof of what he paid for it, and even witnesses. I mean, on paper, that seems pretty convincing, right? But of course, every story has two sides. and the defendant's denial was just as strong as the plaintiff's accusation. This quote from the court filing is a huge piece of the defense's argument. They're making it crystal clear that one of the accused, Hans Raj, works for the paramilitary in Delhi. Their point is simple: he has nothing to do with this land, he doesn't farm it, so there's no way he could have been there. So their defense strategy was pretty straightforward. First, they gave one of the defendants a solid alibi. Second, they flat out denied the blade wire fence ever existed. Third, they even pointed to the person who was actually farming the land. And then they took it one step further, basically saying this whole lawsuit was nothing more than a nasty attempt to squeeze money out of them because of some local village drama. And this is where it all gets really interesting. You've got two completely different stories. So how does a judge figure out what actually happened? Well, it all comes down to breaking down the evidence, piece by piece. And before we get to the judge's final call, we need to talk about this super important legal concept, the burden of proof. In a civil case like this, it's not the defendant's job to prove they're innocent. Nope, the shoe is on the other foot. It's all on the plaintiff, on Judiciary, to prove that they're guilty. He's the one who has to convince the court that his story is true. So, the judge started with the most basic question of all. Was there any actual proof that these dangerous blade wires were even installed by the defendants in the first place? And the answer from the court was a definite no. The judge looked at the photos and basically said they weren't convincing at all. One picture just showed someone holding a random piece of wire. It didn't prove that any wires were actually installed on the defendant's field. Just like that, the first big pillar of the plaintiff's case started to crumble. All right, on to the next question. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that there were wires. Could the plaintiff prove that those specific wires were what killed the mayor? This is all about causation, connecting the dots between the alleged problem and the awful outcome. And once again, the evidence just wasn't there. The post-mortem report was super vague. It said the cause of death was shock, but it never once mentioned blade wires. And to make matters worse, the doctor who wrote that report was never called to the stand to explain it. Without that expert testimony, the report was just a piece of paper with a very inconclusive finding. So finally, the judge turned the spotlight back on the plaintiff himself. Is it possible that his own actions, or lack of action, played a part in this? In legal terms, this is called contributory negligence. And yeah, the court basically said, yes, he was. The judge pointed out that the plaintiff, who swore his prized mare was always tied up, never had a good explanation for how it managed to get loose in the first place. That failure to secure his own animal was seen as a contributing factor, and it really weakened his case against his neighbors. So, after 6 long years, after picking apart all the evidence, the judge was finally ready to give the verdict. The final decision was simple and direct. Suit dismissed. Judiciary just couldn't meet that all-important burden of proof. This final statement from the judge really says it all. After going through every argument and all the so-called evidence, the court found there was just no merit to the lawsuit. The case was officially over. And that leaves us with a huge takeaway. This case was never just about a dead mare. It's a powerful reminder that in a courtroom, the truth is only as strong as your proof. What you believe happened and what you can actually prove happened are often two very different things.